I leaned back in my chair, my fingers lightly tapping the edge of the desk. On the screen in front of me, Jennifer's bank account balance dropped to 0. Gone, just like that. I could almost see her now, her manicured fingers trembling, her eyes widening as she refreshed the page over and over, trying to make sense of the numbers staring back at her. It hadn't been difficult to track her finances. She always kept her accounts linked to her phone, and John, her savior, was too careless to protect her from someone like me. Someone who had been waiting for this moment for months. I could feel the satisfaction deep in my bones. This was what I had been working toward, quietly, methodically. I wanted her to feel what I felt when she left me, helpless, shattered, with nothing to hold on to. Except this time, it wasn't love she was losing. It was the thing she cherished more than anything: money. I imagined her trying to reach John. She'd call him, text him, maybe even drive to his office. But there would be no response. I made sure of that. John wouldn't be able to bail her out this time. No safety net, no escape route. She was on her own, just like I had been. A bitter smile crept across my face. It was poetic, really. She had traded me for a better life, or so she thought. She left me the moment things got tough, when I lost my job and couldn't provide her with the luxuries she had become so used to. I wasn't enough anymore. But now she was about to find out what it felt like to be discarded, left with nothing but the consequences of her choices. I could only imagine the panic she must be feeling at this exact moment. The cold, creeping realization that everything she had built was crumbling beneath her. I swiveled my chair to face the window, looking out over the city. The lights below twinkled, oblivious to the ruin happening in the penthouse just a few blocks away. The city hadn't changed, but Jennifer's world had. And she didn't even know yet who had pulled the rug from under her. I stood up, stretching my arms as the last of the day's sunlight faded. I knew Jennifer well enough to know what would come next. She'd try to piece it all together, maybe even start guessing at who might have set her up. And when my name crossed her mind, and it would all click. She wouldn't be able to fix it. Not this time. The irony of it all was that I had once thought she was the best thing that had ever happened to me. Now, watching her life unravel, I realized the truth. Letting her go was the best thing I could have ever done. But I wasn't finished yet. There was a time when I thought Jennifer and I were perfect together. The perfect couple with the perfect life. It's funny how delusion works. We were climbing the ladder of success, and every step felt like a victory. I thought we were building something real, something lasting. But the cracks were there, even if I didn't see them at first. I see it all so clearly now. She was never in love with me. Not really. She was in love with what I could give her. And I gave her everything. When I look back, I can pinpoint the exact moments where the illusion started to crumble. It wasn't obvious at the time. At first, it was just small things. Her eyes lighting up when I talked about getting a raise, the way she'd immediately suggest we celebrate by buying something extravagant. She wasn't interested in the accomplishment itself. She was interested in how much it could buy her. I mistook it for ambition. I thought she wanted to build a future with me, that she shared my dreams. But I was wrong. She didn't want to build anything. She wanted to be handed a ready-made life of luxury, and as long as I kept providing that, she was happy. I remember the first time I took her on a shopping spree after a big promotion. She was ecstatic, rushing from store to store, picking out designer dresses and jewelry without even glancing at the price tags. She threw her arms around me, kissed me, and told me she was the luckiest woman in the world. But now I know, she wasn't lucky. She was calculating. Even when things were good between us, there was always this sense that she was chasing something more. I thought I could give it to her. I thought I was enough. But Jennifer had always been playing a different game. And I was just a part of her strategy. She had me fooled for a long time. I believed in her, in us. But looking back, it's clear. The love I thought we had was never real. It was just a transaction. And when the balance shifted, so did she. When I lost my job, everything changed. For me, it was a wake-up call. A moment that forced me to confront the reality of my life and what I had built. For Jennifer, it was the beginning of the end. The day I got the news, I came home to find her waiting, perfectly put together, sitting in our living room like nothing had happened. I remember the way she looked at me when I told her. There was concern in her eyes, but underneath, I could see it. A flicker of doubt, of calculation. At first, she played the role of the supportive girlfriend. She told me it would be fine, that I'd find another job soon. But her words felt empty, like she was just going through the motions. I needed her to believe in me, to reassure me that we could get through this together. But deep down, I knew she was already weighing her options. The first sign of trouble came when she started spending more time out. Networking, she called it. Meeting people who could help. At first, I believed her. But the late nights, the unanswered calls, the vague explanations, they all started adding up. And then there was John. I didn't pay much attention to him at first. He was just one of the many wealthy businessmen Jennifer seemed to meet at those events she attended. But over time, it became clear he was different. She mentioned him more often, casually dropping his name into conversation. I tried not to let it bother me, but something about the way she talked about him, about his success, his connections, made my stomach turn. The night she didn't come home until after midnight was the turning point. I confronted her, asked her outright what was going on with John. She didn't deny it. Instead, she gave me that cold, detached look I'd seen creeping into her eyes for weeks. "I need more than this, Brian," she said, her voice flat. "I can't wait around for you to figure things out." I was speechless. I had given her everything, and when things got tough, she couldn't even pretend to stick by me. She packed her bags that night, and by the next morning, she was gone. Off to John and the life he could give her. I should have seen it coming. But even when it was happening, I couldn't believe it. I had always thought love was enough. But Jennifer had never been in it for love. She was in it for the money. And when the money ran out, so did she. The image of Jennifer walking out with her bags in hand haunted me for weeks. I couldn't stop replaying that moment in my mind, the way she looked at me, like I was just another inconvenience she had to leave behind. It wasn't heartbreak, it was betrayal. Pure and simple. I thought I had known her. I thought we had something real. But it turned out I had been living in a lie. And the worst part? She didn't even seem to care. She moved on so quickly, slipping right into John's world without missing a beat. She was already living in his penthouse, already attending his parties, already spending his money. It was like I never existed. The pictures were everywhere. I couldn't escape them. Social media, news articles, even casual mentions from mutual friends. Jennifer and John, the power couple, living the high life. She was flaunting it as if the life she had left behind with me meant nothing. And maybe to her, it didn't. It took me a long time to process that, to realize that the woman I had loved, the woman I had built my life around, had never really been mine. She had been chasing something else all along, and when I could no longer provide it, she didn't hesitate to leave me behind. I spent weeks in a fog, drifting through the days, barely functioning. The apartment felt empty without her, and so did I. Friends tried to pull me out of it, telling me I was better off without her, that she wasn't worth the pain. But it didn't feel like that at the time. I had built my future around her, and now that future was gone. But as the days turned into weeks, something inside me shifted. The pain started to dull, and in its place, something else began to grow. It wasn't anger, exactly. It was colder than that. It was the realization that I had been played, used, discarded like I was nothing. And I couldn't let that go. Jennifer had made her choice. She had left me for a man who could give her more. But now, it wasn't enough for me to move on. I wanted her to feel what I had felt. I wanted her to know what it was like to lose everything. And that's when the plan began to take shape. Once I started thinking about revenge, it was hard to stop. It consumed me, fueled me. But I knew I couldn't rush it. Jennifer wasn't stupid. She had to be lured in, made to feel safe, before I could pull the rug out from under her. I started small, rebuilding myself, both financially and mentally. I threw myself into work, studying everything I could about investments, businesses, anything that could give me an edge. I worked late into the nights, quietly stacking up success after success. The world had no idea what I was planning, and neither did Jennifer. But I didn't want to just succeed. I wanted to use my success to destroy her. The idea took time to perfect. I needed to make sure it was airtight, that there was no way she could trace it back to me before it was too late. And most importantly, I needed her to believe that this was all her idea. She had always been driven by greed, always looking for the next opportunity. So I decided to give her one. When I reached out to her, it was casual. I congratulated her on her new life, acted like I had moved on, like I was happy for her. She didn't suspect a thing. She was too busy living her new dream to question my motives. I started dropping hints about a new business venture I was involved in. Something big. Something that would put John's wealth to shame. It was all part of the bait, carefully laid out so that she would come to me. I knew her too well. I knew she wouldn't be able to resist. And just as I expected, she bit. It was almost too easy. The moment I mentioned the possibility of a massive return on investment, she was all in. I watched her eyes light up with the same excitement I had seen years ago when I first started making money. The same greed, the same hunger. She hadn't changed at all. That's when I knew the plan was going to work. She thought she was getting ahead. She thought she was about to win. But she didn't realize she was walking right into the trap I had set. When I met Jennifer for coffee, it was like seeing a ghost. She looked the same, yet different. She was still beautiful, still elegant, but there was something missing. The spark that had once made her seem untouchable was gone, replaced by something else, anxiety, maybe even desperation. She tried to hide it, of course. She was too proud to admit that her life with John wasn't everything she had imagined. But I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't happy. She was restless, always looking for the next big thing. And now, she thought I had it. I played it cool, casually dropping details about my newfound success, letting her believe I had bounced back bigger and better than ever. I didn't push her. I didn't need to. She was already curious, already thinking about how she could get in on whatever it was I had built. We chatted about old times, about how different our lives had become. She was cautious at first, not wanting to seem too eager. But the more I talked, the more her defenses crumbled. She was intrigued, hungry for more information. And I gave her just enough to keep her hooked. I told her about the new business venture I was involved in. Something massive, something only a select few could be a part of. I could see the excitement in her eyes as I explained how the returns were guaranteed, how it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She tried to play it cool, asking a few questions to make it seem like she was being careful, but I knew her better than that. She was already calculating how much she could invest, how quickly she could jump on board. I let her believe it was her idea, that she was the one asking for the opportunity. And when I finally agreed to let her in on the deal, she practically jumped at the chance. Within days, she had transferred everything she had into the account I had set up. Her savings, her investments, it was all mine now. She thought she was buying her way back into a life of luxury. But what she didn't know was that she had just bought herself a one-way ticket to ruin. Watching Jennifer walk straight into the trap I had set was more satisfying than I could have ever imagined. She transferred the money without hesitation, convinced that this was her golden ticket back to the top. She didn't even question it. That was the thing about Jennifer. When she saw something she wanted, she couldn't resist. It was almost too easy. I knew she was checking the account every day, waiting for the moment when the returns would start pouring in. But instead, all she got was silence. No updates, no confirmation of her success. Just an empty void where her future was supposed to be. The first time she reached out to me, it was casual. She asked how the deal was going, wondering when she might start seeing the returns. I played it off, told her everything was on track, that it was only a matter of time. She seemed satisfied for the moment. But as the days turned into weeks, the cracks started to show. Her messages became more frequent, more insistent. She was worried, though she didn't want to admit it. She had put everything she had into this deal, and the longer it dragged on without results, the more anxious she became. I could picture her pacing in that penthouse, just like I had imagined all those months ago. Only this time, she wasn't waiting for John to save her. She was waiting for me, and I wasn't going to save her either. The moment she realized the money was gone, that everything she had invested was lost, would be the moment I had been waiting for. I wanted her to feel the same sense of hopelessness, the same desperation that I had felt when she walked out on me. But there was still one more step to take. One final move to make sure she knew exactly who had orchestrated her downfall. She thought she was about to win, but she was about to find out just how wrong she was. The day Jennifer showed up at my office, I knew it was over. For her, at least. I watched her walk through the door, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. She had figured it out, and now she was here to confront me, desperate for answers. I leaned back in my chair, waiting for her to speak. She didn't waste any time. "Brian, what's going on?" she demanded, her voice shaking. I checked the accounts, everything's gone. "Where's the money?" I didn't bother playing dumb. There was no point in dragging it out any longer. I had already won. "There is no money," I said calmly. "There never was." Her face went white. "What do you mean? You told me..." I told you exactly what you wanted to hear, I said, cutting her off. You wanted to believe that you could get back on top, that you could win again. But you've been losing from the moment you left me. She blinked, her mind racing to catch up with what I was saying. You did this on purpose, she whispered, barely able to get the words out. I nodded. You left me for a better life, Jennifer. You traded me in for something you thought was worth more. But now you've lost everything. Her lip trembled as the full weight of my words hit her. She looked down as if she couldn't bear to meet my eyes. I didn't think, she started, but her voice trailed off. She didn't need to finish the sentence. I knew exactly what she had thought. She had thought she was untouchable, that she could use people, discard them, and keep moving forward. But not this time. She turned and walked toward the door, her shoulders slumped in defeat. As she reached for the handle, I couldn't resist one final jab. You should have stayed, Jennifer. Now you're left with nothing. She paused for a moment, then walked out, leaving me behind. But this time, I was the one who had walked away with everything. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more revenge tales with surprising twists, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and let us know in the comments what you thought about the story. See you in the next one.